Well, I normally like a really good cold open, little banter amongst each other here, but got outvoted today. Welcome to Runnin Thru the Jungle. Once again, I am your host, Brandon Herriott, here with your host, Tim Lyons and Justin Lacey. What up, though, fellas?
What to do?
Apologies for being late, but we had a quick delay while Tim was getting a bunion rubbed. We're back at it, ready to go now.
Why are you telling lies? I don't know why you telling lies up in this place. Come on, they know better than that. He's always cutting on me. But anyways.
So, listen, hey, man, not much has happened since we last talked, huh? No such thing as the offseason in the NFL.
No.
None.
Yeah.
None. And the Bengals are living proof of that.
Mm-hmm.
Jess, I'm gonna let you pick, man. Where you want to start the show at, man? What do you want to? Do you want to walk into the waters? Walk down the steps, or do you just want to jump in the dive in the deep end? Where we at? Where we at? We're gonna sit on the side of the pool, put our feet in.
I've toggled with the mind back and forth to just how we're going to ease into this conversation or not. But honestly, let's cannonball into this subject matter because look, man, let's address the elephant in the room. Trey Hendrickson, okay? We obviously know he had demanded it. Okay, I wouldn't even call it demanded. I think it was more of a commanding of a trade request. The Bengals front office had agreed to let Trey Hendrickson and his representation seek permission to, form a trade. And let's see if it happens or not. But the obvious news was just not settling as because we literally just heard Duke Tobin speak at the podium at the combine talking about wanting to do whatever it takes to make sure that we can get these guys rewarded. That was Jamar, obviously. That was T. And Trey was a part of that discussion, even though many people were able to read the tea leaves of his conversation and feel like that Trey was sort of in a bucket by himself. But it still didn't mean that they didn't want to do what they can to reward him for the hard work that he's done. Just kind of rattle off the last 2 years from Trey Hendrickson's productive career here. He's been a productive 4 years, made the Pro Bowl all 4 years as his tenure with the Bengals, but back-to-back 17 and a half sack seasons, leading the league in sacks this past season. That's 35 total sacks. That ranks among the best in the league. But we know that that's not the end-all, be-all when it comes to his position, but that is the stat that everybody focuses the most. So that's the obvious conversating point that's going on in Bengals world. That's what's happening in the jungle right now. And I'm not going to lie, I did crash out a little bit when I first saw the reported news. But I've since rationalized my thinking behind it. But before I give my ultimate opinions and my feedback and thoughts, I just want to kind of toss it around the room a bit to kind of get you guys' feelings and temperatures so that way I'm not just over here crashing out again.
I'm gonna give a temperature take before I'm gonna give you a temperature take here real quick before I'll let Tim go with how he feels about the whole thing. But you referenced Duke Tobin, hearing him talk and what he was saying about the guys. Before I heard Duke Tobin, I heard Trey Hendrickson making his rounds.
Right.
And those things didn't sound positive then. So I think I might have been a little callous to this already. I already thought that's I think he was unhappy about it last year. He didn't get what he wanted, even though he's the one that wanted a contract extension and he signed said contract extension. He outplayed said contract extension. And now, he wants a new one. I get it. But when you start going on that, like, I want what's best for the Bengals. And if that means I'm not there and they win a Super Bowl, I mean, that's what it is. And yeah, it just was a real weird tour of of sports, radio shows and podcasts and stuff. I don't know. So I heard that first before I heard what Duke said. And what I heard Duke say was, we want to re-sign all of our guys. These guys, he said, he outplayed his contract and he deserves more money. But you know what he really focused on? Jamar is going to be the highest paid non-quarterback in the league.
Yep.
And T. Higgins is of the utmost importance for us to re-sign him. Then it was and that's what I heard. So that's what I heard from those two guys. Tim, I'll let you. I'll shut up and sit in the background. I'll let you talk about how you feel about this.
Like I said last week. Last week I said, when Duke made his comments about signing Trey, I'm not surprised what's happening today. Today, I'm not surprised, because it seemed like it was let's sign Jamar Chase to a big contract for a non-QB. Let's get T. Higgins signed. But yeah, we're aware of Trey. That's all I got out of it. So as of today, I'm not surprised. Just like Brandon said, Trey Hendrickson was making his media roundabouts and all that stuff. But before that, his boy Joe Burrow was making his roundabouts and fighting for all three of them. So how does Joe Burrow feel about this today? I don't know. I'm sure he's not. I think there's two parts of Joe. There's the business Joe, and then there's the friends Joe. Joe's probably pissed that this is happening, but he also is probably backing Trey Hendrickson and going, you know what, man, you do what you got to do. But as we go on with this thing, I'm not surprised. The last time that we have signed 30-plus-year-olds was Geno Atkins and Carlos Dunlap. Geno, I said this backstage, but I wanted to share this with the community, that Geno played out his contract, had 14 and a half sacks in 3 years or something like that, but until his body gave out. Carlos Dunlap, he played, I think he had like 6 sacks one year. He had maybe 9 was his most that he had. But then after that, he plateaued. He quit on the Bengals, and now he makes the Cincinnati Bengals look bad. And don't get me wrong, we know what the Cincinnati Bengals are known for. We know what they're known for. They're not signing guys. They're not giving people their money, whatever the situation is. But the way I'm looking at this Trey Hendrickson situation is this is, okay, yeah, Trey Hendrickson's owed X, Y, and Z amount of money this year. But if we trade him, and I guess the Commanders and the Falcons were like the main interest right now on Trey Hendrickson. So if we can get their first round pick from them, I wouldn't be mad about it.
So who did you mention there? The Commanders and who?
The Commanders and the Falcons.
Yeah,
yeah, I wouldn't be mad about it.
But if given the option, though, right, you send him to the NFC again.
Right, we send him, and that's why I said the Commanders or the Falcons. Yes, let him go.
Would you take an early second round instead of a later first round just to get him to the NFC?
Well, with what Trey is worth right now on paper and what he's done on the field, I say a first rounder is not too much to ask for. Would I settle for an early second rounder? Yeah, as long as it's not the Cleveland Browns, the Pittsburgh Steelers, or
I say
or
top 10 to 12 pick in the second round on the NFC. So pick 33 to 44 and send him to the NFC.
Yeah, and I saw other people's wish list too. They were like, well, how about Green Bay Packers send us Jair Alexander and their 24th pick for Trey Hendrickson? I wouldn't be mad about that either.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah, I know, but I wouldn't be mad about that either. But,
no one's going to give up that asset because of the amount of money they're going to have to pay him.
Right, and I believe Trey Hendrickson was probably wanting $30 million a year for the next, for the next 3 years probably.
Max Crosby just signed 3 years, $106 million.
Yeah, but Max. Okay, so let's put this down. Trey Hendrickson, a hell of a pass rusher. He's not very good at the rush defense, to be honest. He has one move.
Correct.
He has one move, and it gets in. And I like Trey Hendrickson. Don't get me wrong, but the thing is I have a problem with Trey Hendrickson as this is his attitude and the way he's kind of presented himself in the media. You know, we signed him to he wanted an extension a couple years ago. The Cincinnati Bengals gave him that extension, and then last year he threatens to not play, and he wants a new contract when he's not even eligible for a new contract last year. And then now it's, oh, well, you know, I'll either be with Cincinnati or not. I love Cincinnati and all this other stuff. That's great. But his attitude, though, going around about it is, and I know he wants his money. So, you know, but that's my feelings on Trey Hendrickson in this trade. I'm not surprised. Not surprised at all.
Okay.
Yeah, and listen, I think it's the Max Crosby deal was kind of the edge breaker to me because it puts it into that $30 million range, right? 3 years, 106. Max Crosby, like you said, a little more flexible in what he does. Also going into his 28-year-old versus a 31-year-old contract. So 3 years puts him at where we're looking at Trey Hendrickson right now. And so he's going to probably have some of his best years in there. And he's more flexible in how he lines up. Trey Hendrickson, since he got to the league, has went on one spot and done one thing over and over and over again. Has he been great at it? Yes. Does it kind of pigeonhole us as a defense sometimes on that one? You know what you're going to get from him.
Yeah.
You know where he's going to be. Justin, you brought that up time and time again last year.
So here's my ultimate feeling about the whole Trey Hendrickson thing. And like I said, I'm not going to lie. When I first heard the news reported, I did crash out a little bit. Not necessarily on Twitter, but I just crashed out in my own way. Like, Lord have mercy, just get me through this because I can't believe we got to this point. But I had to rationalize my thinking and actually think this thing through. I'm going to start off with the Trey Hendrickson part, and I'll then vert you all off to the Bengals part too. And then I'll try to collectively combine them together for it to make sense. On the Trey Hendrickson side, I really understand why he is like he's choosing the path that he's chosen. He signed a contract in 2021. It was a fair market contract at the time that the Bengals signed him, and he outproduced that contract. It was simple. He was entering he did sign an extension, and at the time it was a very smart extension that the Bengals had signed him through because the potential of him raising his floor was there too. And the Bengals wanted to reward his work a little bit earlier, give him a bump in pay. And I think that the Bengals want to keep on doing that, especially as guys go into their elder statesman years. And that usually starts at the age of 30 for most people. They want to keep rewarding them with small bump of incentives as the years progressively goes on. And that they feel like that the cliff is going to start to fall at some point once you hit that 30-year-old threshold mark. And then there's definitely statistical data and evidence to prove that. But at the end of the day, if you're Trey Hendrickson, you're looking at it from the outside standpoint of, dude, I've been producing, I've been balling. I honestly could have been defensive player of the year. And honestly, the reason why we didn't is because I didn't get it is because we didn't even make the playoffs because the team that was surrounded by me on that side of the ball was suffering. And I still did what I can to hold up my end of the bargain. Now, I also think that the piece of the Max Crosby contract coming to fruition a day before of him breaking the bank again, that also kind of spoke to Trey Hendrickson and his representation. Like, maybe I deserve this amount of money too, because I outperformed Matt Crosby when I was on the same field as this dude. But to what you guys had literally just stated, Trey Hendrickson and Max Crosby are two different kind of defensive linemen. And I don't need to reiterate that because we already know at this point in time, that's what this juncture is. Trey lines up on one side and it can be easily game planned for. But at the same time, if you're Trey Hendrickson, you're looking at it, even with that being the case, they still couldn't stop me. And there's literally no one else on the line that was producing, and I still got the numbers. So I do respect that Trey Hendrickson, he definitely deserves to be paid. And I do believe that the Bengals did offer him a really good contract extension. It's just a further guaranteed years and amount that coincides with it. They're just too far apart. Now let's go to the Bengals side. It is very easy to just throw stones at the Bengals front office. In fact, I've been one of those people that was criticizing the Bengals front office, just like in Mary's comment here when she stated that this just shows that the front office and the Bengals are just not on the same page with their players. They're just, and that's absolutely true. Because what we've been hearing is they've been having some good conversations, but none of, and it's just kind of like give you some, okay, I feel somewhat good about it, just to give you enough time to breeze past. But it's just not good enough to make you feel confident that this will get done. I drank the same Kool-Aid that damn near everybody else did last week after I heard Duke Tobin speak. Because what I also didn't take away from it is that I didn't think that Trey was going on a media roll during Super Bowl week and just start bad mouthing the Bengals. I think that he had the Bengals back for the most part. He also stated that, look, while I'm in this situation about a new contract, they've also treated me very well, but he's making it known that he wants to remain here in Cincinnati. But also at the end of the day, he said, I want to still do what's best and right for the Bengals. If that means trade me, cool. Basically, that could mean pay me my money that I feel like I'm worth, or trade me so somebody else can do it. You'll get your picks, and I still want you guys to win the Super Bowl either way. It's I don't really take it as a disrespectful sign that Trey made those comments. I just think that last year was a symbolic of his agent really didn't do him his due diligence. And the Bengals felt like that we did what we supposed to have done and signed him early. Other franchises try to do that. They get rewarded for it. They get patted on the back when they do it. But when the Bengals do it, now all of a sudden they're being called clowns. But I do agree that this is just not a good look for the Bengals front office either. But however, I do want to point into this direction. And this is kind of the gear towards more to the Bengals side. 2 years ago, we've seen Lamar Jackson in this situation where him and the Ravens, they just couldn't come to an agreement on a contract extension. Ravens fans like to pretend like that didn't exist, but it did. Lamar put out a trade request when they couldn't come to an agreement. What did the Ravens do? They made him available by virtue of this. They tagged the non-exclusive tag, franchise tag on him, and then in return, that's their way of saying we're going to make him available, but here's what we're going to require from this tag. You give us 2 first-round picks. You can have Lamar Jackson, but you sign him to the deal that he's requiring. And if I'm not mistaken, the deal was probably somewhere along the lines of Deshaun Watson's deal. And guess what? Crickets. And so that now allowed them to go back to the negotiating table and finally come up with an agreement later on during the offseason. But this could probably be representative of that. It could be. I don't know. The whole situation hasn't really truly played out yet. But if the Bengals do trade him, they are going to want to get a fair compensation value in return. And part of that is, okay, new team, whoever it is, whether it's the Commanders, you give me your pick 29 of this first round draft, you sign them to that mega extension that you do give them. And then fair, there it is. There's your deal. But at the end of the day, if you're not willing to negotiate that deal, because I think that while I love Trey Hendrickson, I don't value him in the same bucket of paying him as the highest paid non-quarterback. Because if you're looking for Max Crosby money now, that's what it's going to be. The highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. I love Trey, but he's not that. We're already allocating that for Jamar. So with that being said, this is where we're at a stalemate. So the best thing to do is, if you're the Bengals, grant him permission to seek a trade to see if his market value matches up to where he views himself. And if there's an agreement, the best offer on the table wins the deal. If not, let's get back to the negotiating table and let's finish this thing off. Also, while we're in the cusp of trying to bring back 2 of our own guys on mega extensions of themselves.
Yeah, it's fair. Dennis Pavlik, the quad father in the building. Thanks for coming in. And Mary, thanks for rocking with us. Austin Zart, we appreciate you guys. The quad father says, well, you better find one heck of a pass rusher. This is something that we've talked about before. Taking developmental guys, Miles Murphy, whatever. Joseph Osai got hit by the injury bug. I think Joseph Osai, if given the opportunity to play over the past 2 years, would have done a lot better than we think. So those are things that I definitely understand. I do understand. Mary also said, Mary Edwards here, despise the 1-year extensions. I get it too. I get that, especially when he was, 29 when he signed his 1-year extension, 28 going into 29, I think it was, signed an extra year at the end. To me, that should have been 2, but there was a reason why it was only 1. Trey's the one that signed it. We don't know what happened there in that negotiation. A big part of the problem, you kind of alluded to it, Justin. When you're starting to hear Duke Tobin and the Bengals say things in public and then immediately not do them, it almost gives like a sense that they just said fine and just walked away, right? So if you know that you're going to do everything you can to get two guys signed, and a third one might suffer because of it, don't say anything about the third one.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it when we have more knowledge from Trey and what his camp is looking for. Boom. End of story, right? Once we go to the drawing board a little bit more, we really don't have details as what to talk about. Boom. Get on to something else. The things that, like, I really feel like the Bengals here, and we've talked about it in our chat. Bengals don't sign defensive linemen that are long in the tooth. Tim, you've referenced a couple times they have. They've got burned. I want to tell you the history of the league here. I went into best all-time seasons after the age of 31 as pass rushers. So in the age 31, 32, 33, and 34, which is what Trey is looking for. He wants to add 3 more years to this extension. They would go 31 to 34. Bruce Smith.
Oh, geez.
The man, the myth, the legend. 48 sacks in those 4 years. The best that's ever done it in those 4 years. Reggie White, 47 sacks in those 4 years. Jason Taylor, Hall of Famer, 40 sacks. Let me throw out some other names. Lawrence Taylor, 28 and a half in those 4 years. Terrell Suggs, 22. Didn't even get to finish those 4 years. Dwight Freeney, 17. Gold jacket, gold jacket, gold jacket. That's what happens to those guys. Fall off at some point around 31, 32 years old. That position's really hard on your body.
Right.
Trey plays it like his hair's on fire. So I feel like the Bengals here are putting chips on the fact, like a short sale almost, right? So, I don't know. I don't think this is. I'd like to have you. This is what we're willing to pay you, and this is how many years we're willing to do it. If you're willing to go out there and find something else and find something better, we'll see what the compensation is. I think that's where this is at right now.
I'll also make notice and mention of this as well, too. And this is why I will criticize the Bengals front office for this. It seems like that they're just scared to fail. It seems like that when they do have misses, when they do take a chance to the Carlos Dunlaps and the Geno Atkins, as you mentioned before, it seems like that they're very timid to swim in those waters again. And that's not really a good way of thinking about it. They're like, we literally see all the same situation with the Kansas.
Hold on.
To the Chiefs. Everybody just well assumed this was not. Oh, no, am I back?
Yep.
Yeah,
you're
back.
Yeah, I'm back. I'm back. Okay. It got to the point with Chris Jones that everybody thought that he was on his way out the door. And then what did they do? Went back-to-back Super Bowls. And after the second Super Bowl, then that offseason, he was back under a new constructed deal. So with that being said, these things are possible. And it ain't like Chris Jones is a player that was young when he signed that. He was older too. In fact, he was a year older than Trey when he signed this deal. Like older year as far as like drafted a year sooner than Trey Hendrickson was. But the problem is, though, and I see Qualifiers' comments, I honestly believe money because of Chase Higgins' situation. Maybe that could be the case. But the thing is, that shouldn't have stopped you from being able to extend them just because you're literally paying no one else on this roster other than Joe Burrow. You could factor in Orlando Brown Jr.
You're going to get a guard in free agency. You're probably going to get some a defensive lineman or two. Maybe get a linebacker. They have $60 million in cap space right now, and that's with he at $26 million this year and not renegotiating that and putting any money up front in the deal. They could very well have 75 to 80 million. They could very well have upwards to 90 if they trade.
Yeah, with the trade. And that's still trading Jermaine Pratt.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm just telling you, man, like, to me, listen, I'm sitting here right now giving them the benefit of the doubt. You got to see it, though, right? You got to see it. If we're having this conversation in 2 weeks that T's not getting signed, Jamar's not getting signed, not 2 weeks, maybe 2 months, whatever. We start getting into June, and I'm not hearing like we're getting close to signing somebody here. We're getting these guys signed. I'm going to get a little bit upset about this whole thing.
I just want to touch base to his comment about Chris Jones. It's not saying that Chris Jones and Trey are the exact same player, Quad Father. It's me pointing out that this
contract situation.
The Kansas City Chiefs were in the situation where they had a lot of people locked up on long-term deals in the teeth of the Patrick Mahomes contract, and they still found a way to get it done with an older player, even though because they recognize his value as a core member of the team. And they also literally did the same thing with Travis Kelce last year. He was a guy clearly that was falling off the cliff, but yet they made an extension for him, granted him to be the highest paid tight end. Now, granted, being the highest paid tight end is different than being the highest paid non-quarterback. And again, this is all by the assumption that Trey is probably looking at himself in that ballpark. But even then, it's still under the situation of, while I understand that the Bengals are very timid to make these moves, they're just seeming like that they're scared to probably fall, on their face, that they're more fear of failure and flattening on their faces more than swinging and hitting the fences and trying to build around them.
So I want
out again as I said that.
Yeah, so I want to make a comment of this is. So I know Joe Burrow was on the, making the rounds in the media, saying that we need to do X, Y, and Z. Okay. So in 1981, we went to the Super Bowl with Ken Anderson, right? And then they replaced him as a quarterback. 1988, we went to a Super Bowl with Boomer Esiason. Okay. And then the 1990s came around. We all know what hell that went through, right? Then we get Joe Burrow, who takes us to a Super Bowl, an AFC Championship game. What I believe and what I'm saying, though, is we need to capitalize now when the getting is good, because if we wait too long, we're going to have a repeat of 1981 and then 1988, and then nothing's going to come around again for 30 or 40 more years. We have Joe Burrow, who is the top 2 quarterback in the frickin' league. We have Jamar Chase, who is the best wide receiver in the league, which they're not even close to contract negotiations right now. And then we have T. Higgins, who's been tagged, which I'm fine with. I think it was a great, smart situation. The Bengals have already said that they're not trading T. Higgins. They're not even letting it even get through the door. People have already contacted them. They said no. So that tells us that they're working on a deal. Hopefully that deal gets done. And as we say, or as Brandon Herriott says on Running Through the Jungle, is hope is not a strategy. But as a Cincinnati Bengals fan, I'm hoping that Cincinnati Bengals get this deal done with T within the next week or two. I really do, because I don't want to see this drag on. Look at the situation we had with Jesse Bates. Do we want that shit show to happen again? No, we don't. It's T. Higgins. With T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, it makes Joe Burrow an even better quarterback. I don't care what any of you Cincinnati Bengals haters out there that are watching that says, oh, Joe Burrow would be average on another team. Yeah, I call BS on that, so whatever. I know Joe Burrow's had Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase when he was with LSU, and now he's got T and Jamar Chase with the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't care what you say. But anyways, we need to capitalize now with the whole Trey Henderson situation. I'm hoping that the front office is on the same page as we are, that they either trade him because Trey thinks that he can get, $33 million a year from the Atlanta Falcons or from the Washington Commanders, whatever Trey and his camp thinks that they can get. Okay, that's great. I'm happy for you, Trey. Go on, ball out, end your career, come, and maybe come back to Cincinnati and retire as a Bengal. Whatever you decide to do, I don't care. Now, I'm hoping that the Cincinnati Bengals front office is just seeing the possibilities that if we do trade Trey, there are possibilities. Well, there's many possibilities, but let's hope that the Cincinnati Bengals front office is on that same page.
I'll tell you right now, I don't think rather Trey plays out his final year, because I do think he would, if nothing else happens. I do think he would. I think that's the way Trey's wired. Or if he does end up getting traded, that to me is not a crucial misstep. It's to me not as egregious as letting Jesse Bates go over $2 million a year when he's young and in his prime. I think you just probably saw the best season that Trey will have statistically. My gut feeling. Now, again, I wish I could have been able to clip this. I was on the Homies podcast last Friday, and I said on there, if you want to gun to my head where I put the Mendoza line, right? Where I'm okay with how the Bengals handled the offseason. Jamar Chase gets extended, and we at least get a tag and trade out of T. Higgins. At that point, I'm neutral. If we extend T and Jamar, I'm happy. If we also sign Trey Hendrickson, I'm ecstatic. If we also sign Gesicki, I'm over the moon. If we sign Gesicki with those two, and we get 3 of those 4, I'm ecstatic. I mean, ecstatic. To think one of them's not going to walk away is crazy.
Right.
So if Trey walks away, or if we trade Trey $16 million more, does that mean it's easier to get that deal done? It's easier to bring Gesicki back for 3 years. Do the dominoes start falling? And the whole thing with Jamar Chase and how far off, the athletic and Diana Rossini, who I respect, I admire, I think she does a great job. They're not close. Okay, what's not close? You said you're going to make him the highest paid player outside of a quarterback. So that number right now is $36 million.
Mm-hmm.
So the Bengals are probably somewhere between 36 and 40. And Jamar saying, I want to break 40. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
I'm of the mind frame to believe that the Bengals are really offering really good contracts. I just think that the public perception right now of the Bengals is that everybody just feels like that they're just being cheap. When the reality is that
they earned it.
But they
Justin.
have, but
over
they
the
actually
past
have
40 years, they've earned it.
Trust me, I understand that. But I'm also of the mind frame of understanding that just because you can have this label, that doesn't mean that you're not willing to offer fair dollar value. And for Jamar, the fair dollar value is up in that echelon of north of 36, 37. And if it goes to 40, the Bengals should be prepared to make that contract happen. I think it's just probably the guaranteed number. I think that probably is just what it is for the most part. But it's just trying to be not by any way, shape, or form excusing the front office, because we all know the Bengals should have had these deals done. Not necessarily the Trey Hendrickson one. They already did what they needed to do.
Them more money.
It's making it more expensive. But the Trey Hendrickson thing is different, and I do agree with Duke Tobin said. It is a different conversation with Trey because he did sign an extension. He's entering the last year of his deal. It might come down to the situation that both parties sit down. If they can't really get a negotiable trade partner, that they both will sit down and be like, okay, look, we'll give you a 1-year deal on top of the new money, the money that you have. Give you some new money so that way you can go out with a bang on your final contract. It might be something like that. I don't know. But at the end of the day, yes, the Bengals really just should have done their due diligence. But also, somebody had mentioned in the chat earlier, it all goes back to because the Bengals have failed to develop their draft picks. They failed miserably. And I wouldn't call it like they're bust, but they're not producing. We're not getting enough production out of them because right now, nobody will really be talking bad about the Trey Hendrickson thing if Myles Murphy was coming in and producing like crazy. But we're going into year 3 of Myles Murphy, and we still don't know what he is. Like, Joseph Ossai is a free agent, and the Bengals may not even retain him, even with the Trey Hendrickson news trade coming out, because of what his injury history has been. So it's one of these things where it's like, if they have gotten actual production, like really impactful production from their first 3-round picks over the last few years, it wouldn't even make much of a difference. You'll be willing to trade and get like a 4th or a 5th round pick in return just because you know you got somebody coming off the bench. That's where the difference lies. And this is why they can't necessarily be the Philadelphia Eagles. I understand it's really popular to compare everything to the Eagles and what they've done. Well, the difference is the Eagles draft better. And
Yeah.
some of their guys, like Milton Williams, there's no conversations that he's being retained in free, like to the team. They understand that he's going to have to test the market. Hassan Reddick just last year went through this with them and got traded to the Jets and whatnot. So it's a lot of these things that they understand that can happen with this team. But it's one of those things where it's like it all boils down to the Bengals just didn't get enough with their draft planning philosophy and didn't see productive out of their picks to be able to successfully move off of guys. It's still while we're talking about Jesse Bates 2 years after he's left the team. It's now while we're factoring the DJ Reader conversations a year after he's left the team. It's all of these things. They haven't got enough production from the draft picks.
I don't have a DJ Reader conversation.
No, you don't,
Austin
but other
Zart,
people do.
out of the NFL teams, the Bengals have barely had scouts at those games to look at those prospects. We talked about that a couple weeks ago, man. Listen, I heard we hired another guy now in the front office, but our front office is too skeleton crew for sure. There needs to be a little bit more depth into that. Listen, I don't know how much they're paying or whatever. Probably a few guys in the Runnin Thru the Jungle crew here that would be willing to make that sacrifice and do some scouting for you. So give us a call. All right,
Definitely.
we're going to take a quick break. Couple deep breaths, a little woosah, and we're going to come back and get back to some more Bengals news. Like I said, the offseason is not off around here. So we're going to hear from some sponsors, and we'll be right back after these messages. All right, we are back to Running Through the Jungle. Tim Lyons, Justin, Lacey, and Brandon Herriott here, chopping it up about all things Cincinnati Bengals and NFL football related, for that matter. Justin.
Yes, sir.
You hit a hot button on that first one, man. What do you want to do to cool us off here? Where are you going to take us to the next one?
All right, now it was
spider
a lot. We got to cool down now. Let's talk about some good things. Okay, his play was not very good at all for the last 2 years, but the good thing was that we saw Sam Hubbard officially retire as a Bengal. Spent his whole entire career from start to finish in the Bengals uniform. Correct me if I'm wrong. I cannot, other than maybe Anthony Munoz or something, but or Ken Riley, I do not know of any other Bengal, former Bengal, that has spent their entire career, okay, Geno Atkins too, that retired a Bengal officially. Geno Atkins got released, but he never actually sent out an official retirement statement.
No.
So, but I mean, it's implied that he was retiring if when he went through that year, didn't get signed or any team, but he technically still to this day can still go out and get signed to another team. He hadn't officially retired, at least that's not to my knowledge. Maybe he did. He just didn't put it out there on the books. But the way how Sam Hubbard retired, that was such a feel-good moment. What I didn't like is the notion that people were saying before this happened is that the Bengals can probably look to restructure him and do like the Joe Mixon route. He could take a pay cut or, in his contract because he was due to $10 million or something. And I'm just like, no, I need that money back on the books, off the books. I need that $10 million back, Sam. I love you, you're Cincinnati kid and all that, but I need that money back. There ain't no restructuring conversation going on, at least in my mind. So with that being said, the Bengals did release him, and he ultimately decided it was best that he go ahead and retire. And you know what? Great for Sam Hubbard. The fumble in the jungle is going to be the most memorable play in all of Bengals history now. I'm sure that there's other ones that can probably, compete alongside of it. But in my immediate memory, or even my Bengals history memory that I have, it's always just been that way. I think that the fumble in the jungle is the game, the one play that sticks out in many people's mind. But I got a question to ask you. You guys can give me your thoughts on the Sam Hubbard retirement news, but does Sam Hubbard get into the Ring of Honor?
Oh, man.
That's a heated. You can't be asking that right now because as of the last couple, don't get me wrong, we all love Sam Hubbard. and I'm gonna agree with Brandon. I'm gonna say nope as well, because I do love Sam Hubbard. I thought he had a good career in Cincinnati. I didn't say great. I said he had a good career in Cincinnati. He ended his football career with a touchdown catch from his former roommate Joe Burrow, and that was the last play that we've seen from him. But other than that, on the field, we really weren't seeing very much production last year from him. And I know he was battling injuries the year before, and then probably throughout the season. I'm speculating here. I'm not sure, but I'm happy for him. He was an Ohio State Buckeye. He came in. He is from that Cincinnati area. That's why they call him the Cincinnati Kid. I'm happy for him, and I'm glad he went out the way that he did. I know that some of us had Hubbard on our, maybe to cut list or release list because he's due that money and he wasn't producing very much. So, but it was nice to see him go out in style and on his own, his own terms.
I do want to address this. Hude Brew, we appreciate you chiming in here, man. He said Munoz played his last year for Tampa Bay and Sam Weiss. Not true. He agreed to go to Tampa Bay, never actually played. He got hurt in the offseason and never made it to the field. So technically, still he's on the list of people who only played for the Bengals. Dave Lamphin, another one. Tim Crumry, Eddie Edwards. Some interesting names in here. Anthony Munoz, Ken Riley, Bob Trumpy.
Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of older head names.
But not very many. Yeah, it's a little bit player empowerment, we'll say.
In the salary cap era of where players can have free roam to go wherever they want to, it feels like that no other Bengals player can actually officially retired as a Bengal. And here's the thing. Let me just add this little caveat. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that the player can start and finish their whole career with this one team. That's tough to do. Even Tom Brady didn't do that. But it's like, hey, even if the Bengals acquired somebody and they produced on the back end of their career before they retired, I haven't even seen that happen because the Bengals don't like paying guys over 30. So it was just
Tim nailed ahead. Sam Hubbard had a great career. I'm glad to see him go. Like I'm happy that he played. Ohio guy, played his ball at Ohio State, college ball, and then a good career with the Cincinnati Bengals. Last play of his career, catches a touchdown pass. Yeah, it's a cool story, man. Cincinnati Kid.
Yeah, it's a great story. I'm with you guys in agreement. I don't necessarily put him in the Ring of Honor at all either. But here's what I will say: if the Bengals that very same season during that playoff run, if we would have went back to the Super Bowl and won it, that play would be etched in stone in NFL history. And then I think in my mind, you have no choice but to put him in the Ring of Honor at that point off of that one play.
Fair. That was a pretty awesome play.
But we love Sam Hubbard, man. Like this, I'm not going to slander Sam Hubbard at all for all he's meant to the community. He's a Cincinnati kid. Mike Tirico was really nice to hear that call when he did the live wild card game, and then the fumble in the jungle happened. He was like the Cincinnati kid, and it was he will always have that moment. But the last 2 seasons, it was just really rough watching him to the point where it's like, dog, the point where it got really sad for me was he was getting blocked by tight ends that wasn't even that athletic. But the way he got stiff-armed by Lamar Jackson in the first Ravens game, and he threw a immaculate touchdown pass to I think it was Isaiah Likely in the back of the end zone when that could have just easily been a sack or incomplete. That told me what I needed to know. I'm like, all right, man, look, Sam Hubbard, you had a fantastic career, but it is very clear this is over here. Like you got to retire at this point. It was. And I've been singing that song even before the season was even over. So, but great career, good career with the Bengals, I should say. Borderline great because he was a part of some championship runs. But at the end of the day, man, the Bengals, and we needed to move on. And it was clear.
Agreed.
So we cool things down. Do you think that we cool things down successfully off of that?
Little kumbaya. Yeah, my blood pressure feels better.
Yeah.
We got we got some pretty astute football analysts going on over here in the chat. Mary Edwards again. I love Hubbard. He's definitely on my chopping block for sure. Quad Father says the Steelers players do it all the time. Ben, Troy, Hines, among other players, is talking about staying with one team. Quad Father, we have discussed this before. The Bengals front office has not had the same culture as the Steelers front office historically.
Right.
That's one of the things that we're trying to get change pushed through around here. Still could be on the right path, to be determined. I'm not going to freak out yet.
And Cam Hayward about to be another Steeler that finished his career with the Steelers, because I don't see him going to another team at this point in his career.
Mm-mm.
I agree.
Or TJ Watt, but But yeah, no, man, it was a great productive episode so far. And I just feel like that we had to obviously address the elephant in the room with Trey Hendrickson. It's obviously sucks to see it. It's like it's ugly, but at the end of the day, we can paint it however picture that we want to. The Bengals, they just got to be able to figure out a way to maneuver this. It's right now they're getting looked at, and rightfully so, that they're the clown show of the offseason without getting these deals done. And that it's just dragging their feet, taking a couple of years of it for as long as this has been. And it shouldn't have been this way, honestly. And then we always talk about other teams that's just striking while the iron's hot, making moves and stuff for their quarterbacks and stuff. I guess Jake Lisco was one that said it on his podcast on the Locked On NFL Network. Locked On Bengals podcast. He stated, if the Bengals don't go all in now, when will they do it? That is a fair question to ask, because I really don't know. When will they actually go all in for Joe Burrow? So a lot to really take away from all of this.
I listen. I get all the sentiment and I get the knee-jerk reaction. We've got some Steelers fans here in the chat as well as Bengals fans. So I feel like now is a good time to explain this. I live in Pittsburgh, for those of you listening who don't know that. And I will go on to their sports channel here, radio, whatever, 93.7 The Fan, and this and that. When something happens that I know is going to cause an irrationally emotional response. And I go on and listen to it. And I laugh just like Tim did. I have been going on to Cincinnati Bengals podcasts and outlets and watching those same exact emotional responses today.
Mm-hmm.
I get the passion, but my Lord, chill out. Let these guys do their job.
Yeah.
Ain't nothing done. Ain't nothing broken yet. And here's what I'm willing to say. I like the move at defensive coordinator. Lou Anarumo had 1 year that saved his job for the 6 years he was here. I like some of the other pieces that we got, younger pieces that we got. I thought we had some unfortunate injuries last year, especially at corner. I think that'll get better this year. Get a little health and stay healthy there will be good. I think we added that. I think this draft class is strong on edge and defensive tackle.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we can hit some home runs there. Even if we go outside of that on the first pick, I still think there's 2, 3, and 4 rounds that we can get good players there. I think there's some stuff that we can do in the draft. I think there's some guards. I think there's some tackles that are going to flex to guard in the draft. I think there's a lot of moving pieces here that can fit into what we're doing. And you start looking at who we had meetings with. I questioned some of it because I was like, we're not going to have an opportunity to take them.
Yeah.
Now I'm starting to wonder if they thought in their minds that, you know what? Trey looks like he's got 1 foot out the door. So maybe we start looking at what we can do if we want to move up.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we try and do a pick swap and a second rounder if they're not willing to give us their first rounder. Maybe we something along those lines. There's some wheel spinning here. This is not just dead territory where in the past it was the Bengals let their players play out their contract and they either decided to extend them or not extend them. Now they're doing it a little different. So I'm going to hold off judgment. The defense, I think, is going to be improved with scheme. I think the defense could add some more pieces. I think playing some of the young players. I hope we bring back Joseph Osai. We were 25th in the league last year in yards per game, 348 yards. We were 25th in scoring last year, 25.5. And we were almost last in the league going into those last 5 or 6 game stretch where we played decent. I don't think we get worse this coming year. Trey or no
You
Trey?
can't get, yeah, you
Trey
can't
or
get no
no
worse.
Trey. I think they're going to go up to, I think they're going to be in the top half of the league or right around that middle of the pack.
You can't definitely get no worse than what we were last year, like you said, with Trey. It's obviously, like you said, knee-jerk reaction, assume that this defense is going to play like worse than a high school defense when Trey's not on the field. But a part of me does believe in the understanding that this is why you brought in a new defensive coordinator who has a natural ability of being able to nurture and develop the talent that he has on this roster currently. Because the Bengals drafted a lot of young players on defense, and they just hadn't got the right production out of them. And I think that alone can really sway things, swing the pendulum in the other direction. But yes, they got to just start supplementing more quality draft picks because you can't wait anymore if you're trying to chase championships and stuff like that.
So
But at the end of the day, let's just see, like you said, let's just see how this thing plays out.
I saw the head nods. I saw the head nods when I said that. So if you think we're going to be somewhere around, 15 to 20, if you can get Gesicki back, you can get T back, you can get Jamar extended. You don't run that back and say if we're around the middle of the pack in defense, you don't think we got a puncher's chance?
Oh yeah, we do.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I don't think it's time for Bengals Nation to freak out.
No, and that's what I said last week. Remember what I said? I don't know if any of you guys in the chat watched last week's episode, but I said everybody just calm down. Wait till we see pen to paper. And let's wait till we see what's going to happen. This is a long off season. We can panic now. We can be like the Pittsburgh Steelers and be calling for, Tomlin's head right now, and they're not even playing football. Just calm down. It's the off season. It's not the worst. Trey's asking for his trade, and oh my gosh, T. Higgins got tagged. Oh my gosh, we kept him. We're keeping him right now. And let's not all forget, just because Trey Hendrickson asked for a trade, it don't mean we have to trade him. He's on contract this year. We don't have to trade him. So, just calm down. Long off season. Take a deep breath, take a shot of tequila, and just relax.
Yeah, I agree with Austin Zart. I'm more 45% pissed than freaked out. Fair.
Yeah, and I'm not crashing out. Like I said, I know I made it earlier on that I did crash out a little bit, but not on Twitter or anything like that. But I'm not in the crash out mode until it's time to be something to crash out about. This pissed me off more than anything because it's like, why did they have to get to this? But it's not to the point where it's like I wasn't going to be able to understand or kind of piecemeal everything together. Because at the end of the day, I think that this is a negotiation tactic move to be able to renegotiate something better longer term if they are able to do that. And if not, then they can make the move and then they can get fair compensation in return. We'll just see how it plays out. I do want to point out Hude Bruce comment here. The Bengals, they might be trying to get into the Xavier Watson range of the draft. I'm not going to lie, man. Xavier Watson will be a great addition to this Bengals team. With obviously, we already know his relationship with Al Golden is one thing, but with the current construct of the talent that's young, we want to develop, you're going to need somebody that has that sound fundamental brain that understands Al Golden's language. And what better player can come in and do that? That's not Xavier Watts. I mean, that it would be awesome. It would be for me personally. But I wouldn't spend a first round pick on him. I know that. My first round pick is going to be something else.
Yeah, and you guys all know I'm a Golden Domer. I'm a biased, guy, or I'm not biased, but to have Xavier Watts come into Cincinnati Bengals, I wouldn't be mad about it. Like I said about what's his name, Jack Keisner, too, and sixth round pick, fifth round pick as linebacker. I wouldn't be mad about it. I think, but one thing is as Cincinnati Bengals fans that we need to realize is, our defense coordinator is no longer Lou. It's Al Golden. Al Golden, and again, this is the Golden Domer in me. He is a hell of a defensive coordinator. He produces players. He produces, he produced NFL caliber players at Notre Dame. And I think bringing him in is going to give the Cincinnati Bengals a different light, a different, a refreshed, life. So, let's just see how it is.
Tape Boy Fresh in the building. He says, chill out with the Tomlin reference, Lieutenant Governor. I think you guys are good. Hendricks going to get an offer, and the Bengals can decide from there. Tate, I appreciate you chiming in. You know it better than anybody, my man. We don't say nearly as much about Tomlin as the Yinzers do. Mm-hmm. I'll leave it at that.
And I was just taking a shot just for shits and gigs.
Yeah, we had a couple. Hey, listen, I kind of like this Thursday move for us, to be honest with you, because some of our guys that ride at Pump Your Brakes that come over here at the very tail end to give us thumbs up have been over here giving us some pretty good feedback going on over here in the chat. I like it. I appreciate
loving it, man, because this, we're getting engagement, getting interaction from people, instead of the usual Wednesday night, show that we typically do. A lot of people also record on Wednesday nights too, from what I know. And then, it's always like right there in the same time slot that we do it. So it's kind of nice and refreshing to kind of see like, hey, we moved to this slot. We getting a little bit more traffic here. Yeah. So definitely appreciate everybody for chiming in on the comments. A lot of great conversation points that we can keep pirouetting and steering this thing all the way through. But I'm ready to wrap up if you guys are, because we talked about a lot of this stuff that we needed to talk about.
To do Thursday year round, though, we would have to go as soon as Tim got off of work. Because he's over in the West Coast. So we'd have to get it out of the way before that game started.
Yeah. And it's always a possibility, if you guys change your mind, if it's something that we need to do an adjustment, it is what it is. I can do what I can do.
Houday Brew says we still have the Jermaine Pratt request. Could be a mid to late round draft pick. I'm going to tell you what is going to be mid about Jermaine Pratt. His play next year, that's it. You're going to get some lint, some Tic Tacs, and if we're lucky, a 7th round pick.
Yeah.
That's it. All right. Well, hey, any party shots, Justin?
Man, let's just see how the rest of the offseason plays out, man. Let's just see how we get there. Obviously, I'm going to be waking up every day, refreshing Twitter. Actually, I'm going to be doing that the minute that we're done streaming here, just to keep seeing, about the news that's going to come breaking down. But you know what? It's still early in the offseason. It is what it is. But I'm just trying to keep my mind fresh. I'm trying to keep my mind relaxed. I should say not fresh, but relaxed.
Tim?
Everybody, thank you guys so much for watching Running Through the Jungle. We appreciate all the support that we can get. We are the little guys in this whole Cincinnati Bengals podcast world, believe it or not. But we appreciate you guys, every minute of it. Only thing that I have to go off of is don't forget to spring forward your clocks. Don't forget to because that whole, daylight savings time is kicking in. So don't forget Saturday to spring your clock forward an hour. Anyways,
what do you got? Cuckoo clocks over at your house still?
It's my wife's cooking right now. She's cooking.
I'm just saying, what do you got? What clock do you have to set, man? Get with the times, bro. They all change on themselves.
Hey, I got a clock on the wall. Hey, you know what? That's all there is to it. It's a clock.
Mike Hilton in his cryptic tweet, though. I got time enough to get this in, even though we got a minute and a half left.
Okay, go ahead.
Bye. Bye. He gone. We talked about this.
Mike Hilton, bro.
Listen, we talked about this a few weeks ago too, man.
He gonna rush the blitz. He can rush the blitzer somewhere else at this point because we need somebody that can cover.
Send it back to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, he's not as good in coverage, and I think it's going to allow Dax Hill to actually play in a more natural position than him when he gets healthy, because that's where he's most capable and most comfortable. So
is decluttering of the old guard and letting some of the new blood that can potentially take the place and take the reins. And Dax Hill, we've already been talking about it before. That could be a really great position for him to nurture and grow and develop and take it even further beyond.
And I think you're going to see some interesting defensive back and linebacker schemes with Golden. I think you're going to see some fun things. I digress. Listen, what's happened with the Cincinnati Bengals over the past 24 hours has kind of been something that I've been thinking about for a while. Here's my advice to Duke Tobin. You just put your nose down and grind. That's it. Just put your nose down and grind. Don't worry about all the noise. Don't worry about all the BS. You know what you got to do. Go out there and get it done. And until next week, you can catch us then as we are running through the jungle.